Right, so in this video we're going to look into controlling LCD display with our MBED. So what we've got here is a QA pass standard LCD. You know, you're going to see a lot of LCD displays are similar setup to this one that we've got here. There's 16 pins, so we'll see the pin labels there on top, and we'll go through how to wire them up in a minute in this video, pretty much showing the wiring. The main thing to note from the LCD display is that it's you'll see them as a common type. They'll say kind of 16:2 LCD display. So what that basically means is I can display 16 characters per line, and I have 2 lines where I could display. So I can have sentence up at the top and then along the bottom. So that's pretty much what we mean. So we can 16 characters on the top, 16 characters on the bottom, and yeah, so 2 rows of what we can display information. So then the first thing that we do is we wire in our ground supplies. So I've got a ground rail here along the bottom, and then what I've connected into ground is VSS is connected to ground. So VSS is our ground pin for the LCD. We have VO, which is connected to ground, and what that does is it allows you to set the contrast for the brightness of the backlight. So you could, if you put a potentiometer into V0, you could actually change the kind of contrast settings on the backlight, but we're just setting it straight to ground, which gives us pretty much full max version of the contrast. We have our OR-W pin is set to ground as well, so that's your read or write pin. So if you set it to ground, you're just writing the whole time. If you set it to high voltage, you'd be reading. So most of the time you're just writing to an LCD display, so writing out information. You don't need to read from it normally. So that's why we set that to ground. So putting that to 0 allows us to put it into the write mode. And then we have K. Pin K is also connected to ground. So K and A are our power supplies, are basically our supply to the backlight itself. So one is ground, one is high. So K goes to ground. Okay, then we set up our power rails. Now what I'm using is, along the top, I'm using both power outputs from the MBED. So I've got the 3.3 voltage outs on the top, and then the 5 volt from the USB power coming on the bottom rail. So we need both. So what we've got powered into A, so remember that gives us the backlight, that turns on the backlight, so that A and K, so one's got to go to 3.3 volts, that's this one here, 3.3, and then the other is going to ground it. And then the supply to operate our LCD needs to be a 5 volts. Okay, so that's why that's coming down to VDD pin. Then we set up our RS pin and our E pin. So RS stands for register select and E stands for enable. So there's some for controller pins for the LCD display, and I just have them wired in at pin 15 and 16 for the MBED, but you can set these to whatever ones you want. So then the last bit of wiring is just wiring in our data pins. So the only ones we're using are D4, D5, D6 and D7, because we're doing a 4-bit operation, so you don't need the other data pins, and I just have them wired in at pins 17, 18, 19 and 20 in the MBED, and again you can set them as you wish. So that's all the wiring for the setup of the LCD display. Then just testing out the LCD display, you'll see I've got full brightness on it. You can see I've got 2 sentences, so you see the 2 lines, that's what we said, and then again 16 characters, so you can kind of see the blocks of the 16 spaces where you could put characters or symbols or numbers in. So limited space, but a pretty good space for our LCD display.